Some encounters in the wild rewrite everything we think we know about fear, trust, and instinct. They arrive without warning, quiet moments that begin like any other day and end by changing how we see the world forever. The rangers of Glacier Ridge were used to silence. Snow softened every sound. The mountains held their breath, and the only thing that moved beneath the pale winter sun was the wind. For Ethan Cole and Maria Reyes, that morning's patrol was supposed to be uneventful. Check the camera traps, log the animal tracks, and return before the next snowstorm rolled in. The forest looked like glass. Frost glittered on the pine branches, and their truck's tires crunched softly over the frozen dirt road. Maria sipped coffee from a dented thermos, half smiling. "Another day of nothing," she said. Ethan nodded, grateful for the quiet. But nature rarely stays silent for long. It began as a sound too heavy for the wind, a deep, rhythmic thud echoing between the trees. Ethan eased his foot off the gas. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by a strange dragging noise. Both rangers exchanged wary glances. Moose, maybe? Injured elk? They reached for their binoculars, scanning the white horizon. And then the forest opened. From between the snow-laden spruces stepped a bear, massive, dark-furred, and moving with a limp that made every step look painful. Its breath rose in thick clouds, its fur streaked with blood that glowed rust-red against the white snow. Instinct screamed to stay inside the truck, to back away slowly, but something about the bear's posture stopped them. It wasn't charging. It wasn't threatening. It was searching. The animal staggered forward, lowering its head as if carrying something delicate between its jaws. Maria's hand froze halfway to the radio. The bear stopped in the middle of the road, snow swirling around its enormous frame. For a long moment, the three of them, two humans and a wounded giant, just stared at each other through the curtain of falling flakes. Then Ethan saw it. The thing clamped gently in the bear's mouth wasn't prey. It wasn't an animal at all. Dangling from its teeth was a scrap of bright red fabric, torn and frayed, the unmistakable edge of a human jacket. Maria whispered, "Tell me that's not what I think it is." The bear's dark eyes lifted to meet theirs, filled not with rage, but with something far more human, urgency and a plea. And before either ranger could move, the bear turned toward the forest and looked back once, as if to say, "Follow me." Ethan's first instinct was to reach for his rifle. Maria's hand shot out, gripping his sleeve. "Wait." The bear was moving again, each step a labored effort that left deep prints in the snow. It would walk a few paces, stop, glance back, and huff clouds of steam through its nostrils, as if impatient for them to follow. Everything about it defied logic. Bears avoided humans. Injured bears attacked. But this one did neither. It limped forward, its massive frame shuddering with pain, yet its eyes never lost that eerie, focused intelligence. Maria's voice was a whisper. "Ethan, it's asking for help." Her words hung in the frozen air, absurd and yet undeniable. Ethan lowered the rifle slowly. "If we're wrong, we won't have time to regret it." "Then let's not be wrong," she replied. They climbed out of the truck, snow squeaking under their boots, rifles slung but barrels down, a gesture of trust that felt as fragile as the silence around them. The bear didn't flinch. It simply turned and trudged into the trees, glancing back every few yards to make sure they followed. The forest swallowed them whole. The air smelled of pine and iron. Snowflakes drifted through the shafts of weak sunlight, turning the world into a muted dreamscape. The only sound was the bear's ragged breathing and the steady crunch of their steps behind it. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. They were deep enough now that the radio signal began to crackle and fade. Maria tried again. Static. She exchanged a look with Ethan, half fear, half determination, and they kept moving. The terrain sloped downward, the snow thickening until it reached their knees. Fallen branches marked the path like scattered bones. Ethan noticed something odd. The bear wasn't wandering. It was following a trail, a narrow corridor between the trees, worn by repeated travel. And then came the smell. It hit them suddenly, metallic and unmistakable. Blood. Not fresh, but not old either. Maria gagged and pulled her scarf over her nose. Something's dead. The bear stopped so abruptly they almost stumbled into it. It turned, meeting their eyes again, and let out a low, guttural sound that rumbled through the ground. Then, with surprising gentleness, it dropped the scrap of red fabric into the snow. Maria knelt, brushing frost from it. The fabric was from a parka, children's size. A small stitched logo on the sleeve read Glacier Ridge Elementary. Her pulse quickened. Ethan, the missing kid. 2 days earlier, a 10-year-old named Noah Grant had vanished during a family hike. Search teams had scoured the area with dogs and drones, but snow had buried every clue. Until now. Ethan stared at the bear. It can't be. But before he could finish, the bear let out a sound halfway between a moan and a roar, then turned sharply and started uphill, moving faster than before despite its injury. Maria shouldered her pack. If this leads to him, we'll find out. Ethan cut in, already following. They climbed after the bear, hearts hammering. Every instinct screamed that this was madness, but something deeper pushed them on, something that whispered this wasn't coincidence. The forest seemed to lean closer around them, watching. At last, through the maze of trees, Ethan caught a flicker of color, bright red against the snow. The same red as the fabric. The bear reached it first, circling once before sitting heavily beside it, chest heaving. Ethan and Maria stumbled forward, breathless, and saw what the bear had led them to. Half buried beneath a drift of snow lay a tiny hand. For a heartbeat, neither ranger moved. The world around them seemed to freeze, wind, sound, even thought suspended in the sharp stillness of realization. Ethan dropped to his knees, sweeping snow away with trembling hands until a small face appeared beneath the frost. Pale skin, lips blue, eyelashes dusted white. It was Noah Grant. Maria gasped. He's alive. Ethan pressed 2 fingers to the boy's neck. At first, nothing, then a flutter, faint but there. Pulse. It's weak, but he's still with us. Maria exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Oh my God. The bear made a low rumbling sound and backed away slightly, as if giving them space to work. Its massive head swayed with exhaustion. A patch of blood along its flank revealed the wound that had been slowing it down. Ethan pulled off his gloves and checked the boy's breathing, shallow, erratic. He'd been out here for 2 nights, maybe longer. Frostbite had already turned his fingertips ghostly white. The bear had been guarding him. There was no other explanation. Help me lift him, Ethan said. Together they pulled Noah free from the snow, careful not to jolt his stiff limbs. His coat was torn, his boots missing. Maria wrapped him in an emergency blanket, tucking chemical heat packs around his chest and neck. The bear stepped closer. Ethan stiffened, but the animal only lowered its head, sniffing the boy's face before letting out a soft huff that sounded almost relieved. Maria's eyes glistened. Ethan, look. The bear, it was protecting him. Ethan nodded slowly, trying to process the impossible. Tracks around the site told a clear story. The boy had fallen, maybe tumbled down from the ridge above. The bear had found him, wounded itself in the process, and stayed, keeping predators away, keeping him warm, bringing the scrap of red fabric to lead humans here. It had known. Somehow it had known. Ethan's radio crackled faintly. Cole, do you copy? Over. Static drowned most of it, but it was enough. This is Ranger Cole, he shouted. We found the boy. Repeat, we found Noah Grant. He's alive. No response, just more static. They were too deep in the forest. Maria's eyes darted toward the horizon, the sun already sinking behind the peaks. Temperatures would drop fast. We have to move, she said. If we wait for rescue, he won't make it. Ethan glanced at the bear. It was limping worse now, blood dripping onto the snow with every step. Yet when he stood, the bear lifted its head again, looking at him, not as an animal, but as a silent partner in this rescue. All right, Ethan murmured. Let's get him home. He hoisted the boy into his arms, and the bear turned, leading them back the way they'd come. Every so often it would pause, waiting, ensuring they followed. Its heavy tracks broke the path through the deep snow, making it easier for them to move quickly. Maria kept an eye on the child's breathing, whispering encouragements. Stay with us, Noah. You're going to see your parents again. Time blurred. The world narrowed to 3 heartbeats. The man's, the woman's, and the child's, all echoing through the silent forest, guided by something ancient and wordless. At one point, Ethan stumbled. The bear stopped, turned, and let out a low groan, almost protective. Maria stared in disbelief. It's watching out for us. Finally, through the thinning trees, Ethan spotted the faint glint of metal, their ranger truck half buried in snow. Relief crashed over him like a wave. But when he turned to look at the bear, it had stopped a few yards away, swaying on its feet. Its wound was bleeding heavily now, staining the snow crimson. Maria whispered, "It's not going to make it, is it?" The bear's dark eyes met theirs one last time. It huffed softly, almost like a sigh, then sank to its knees. The look it gave them was unmistakable, a farewell. And as Ethan laid Noah gently into the truck, the truth hit him harder than the cold ever could. The bear hadn't just saved the boy. It had led them home. Snow fell harder now, swirling through the trees like drifting ash. The storm had arrived sooner than expected, and visibility was dropping fast. Ethan's breath came in short, sharp bursts as he laid Noah across the back seat of the truck, wrapping the blanket tighter around his small body. Maria climbed into the passenger seat, fumbling with the radio. "Base, this is Ranger Reyes. We've located the missing child. He's alive, but hypothermic. We need immediate evac. Repeat, immediate evac." Static again, just the wind howling through the speakers. Ethan slammed the door shut, turned the ignition, and prayed the engine wouldn't choke in the cold. It roared to life with a sputter of smoke. Relief flickered, then faded when he looked through the windshield. The bear was still there. It stood about 20 yards away, half collapsed in the snow. Blood darkened its thick fur, and each breath came with a visible shudder. It had followed them all the way back, guiding them out of the forest even as its strength failed. Maria's hand touched his arm. "Ethan, we can't just leave it." He knew she was right, but logic fought against her words. The animal was wild, injured, unpredictable. Yet as he stepped out into the blinding snow, all he saw was not a beast, but a guardian. He moved slowly, crunching through the drifts until he was close enough to see its eyes again. They were softer now, dulled by exhaustion, but still watching him. Still aware. "It's okay," Ethan said quietly, voice trembling. "You did it. You saved him." The bear made a low, guttural sound, somewhere between a growl and a sigh, and sank fully into the snow. Ethan's chest ached. Every instinct screamed to keep distance, but he couldn't. He knelt beside it, close enough to see the rise and fall of its massive chest slowing. Maria joined him, her face streaked with melting snow. Its legs torn open, probably from ice or a fall. She glanced back at the truck, then at the bear. "If we don't stop the bleeding, it won't survive the hour." Ethan hesitated. "You're suggesting we treat a grizzly?" She met his gaze. "It treated us like family." That was enough. They grabbed their emergency kits, the same ones they'd used on humans countless times, and returned to the fallen bear. Ethan approached cautiously, murmuring softly with every step. "We're helping, big guy. Stay with us." Maria tore open bandages, her gloved hand shaking. The wound was deep, a gash running along its flank, likely from a jagged rock. Blood pulsed slowly but steadily from it. Ethan pressed gauze against the opening, feeling the warmth through the cold. The bear flinched, a low growl rumbling from its throat, but it didn't move away. It understood. Minutes dragged into eternity. The snow thickened, painting the forest white. Ethan's knees went numb, his breath clouding in front of him as he worked. Maria wrapped a field dressing tight around the wound, sealing it as best she could. "That's all we can do without proper tools," she whispered. The bear's breathing slowed, each exhale softer than the one before. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "Come on, you made it this far." For a moment, the animal's gaze met his, two living beings separated by nature but bound by something deeper. In those eyes, Ethan didn't see wildness or danger. He saw purpose, the same purpose that had driven it to drag itself through miles of snow with a child's scent still clinging to a piece of red fabric. Maria placed a gloved hand on its fur. "You saved him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You saved a child." The bear's chest rose once more, a deep, trembling breath that carried a sound, low and mournful, almost human. Then its body relaxed, eyes closing as snow began to gather across its back. "No," Maria's voice cracked. "No, not now." Ethan swallowed hard. "We did what we could." They stood there for a long moment, two humans and a fallen guardian, surrounded by silence. The snow softened every edge of the world, turning grief into something fragile and holy. Then, faintly, from the truck came a small, broken sound. A cough. Maria spun. Noah. The boy stirred beneath the blanket, his eyes flickering open to slivers of gray light. His lips parted, a weak whisper escaping. Cold. Ethan rushed back, lifting the child gently. Hang on, kid. You're going home. He cranked the heater, wrapping another layer around the boy as color began to return to his cheeks. Maria radioed again, voice urgent. Base, this is Reyes. Child is conscious. Repeat, conscious. We need airlift at Grid 7A. The line hissed, and then a voice broke through. Copy that, Ranger Reyes. Chopper en route. ETA 10 minutes. Ethan looked out the window one last time. The bear's body lay half buried in snow, still and peaceful, framed by the silent trees. He whispered, almost to himself, You didn't just save him. You reminded us what being human means. The wind carried his words into the forest, where they vanished among the pines, perhaps heard, perhaps not. But somewhere, deep within the endless white, a faint echo answered. The rescue helicopter's blades cut through the storm, scattering snow like shards of glass. Ethan and Maria shielded their eyes as paramedics leapt from the chopper, rushing toward the truck. In minutes, Noah was bundled onto a stretcher, his small hands still clutching the red scrap of fabric the bear had carried. Stable pulse, one medic shouted over the noise. He's going to make it. Maria turned away, tears freezing on her cheeks. Ethan stood a few paces from her, staring back toward the forest where the bear had fallen. The snow had already begun to cover its tracks, erasing the evidence of everything that had happened, as if the mountain itself wanted to keep the secret. When they returned days later, the storm had passed. The air was clear, the sky impossibly blue. They found the place where the bear had lain, a shallow hollow beneath the trees. The snow there was pressed smooth, and scattered pine needles formed what looked almost like a natural wreath. No sign of the body, only a single paw print leading toward the deeper forest before fading into the distance. Ethan crouched, touching the imprint. Maybe it wasn't ready to go, he murmured. Maria smiled faintly. Or maybe the forest took it home. In the weeks that followed, Noah recovered fully. When reporters asked how he'd survived the cold, the boy said he didn't remember much, just a warm shadow that had curled around him in the night and kept him safe. The story spread far beyond Glacier Ridge. Some called it instinct, others called it coincidence. But for those who'd been there, it was something deeper, a reminder that compassion doesn't belong to humans alone. Ethan and Maria never forgot that day. They continued their work in the mountains, but every winter morning when the first snow fell, they'd pause, listen, and think of the silent guardian that had once trusted them with its final act of love. Because sometimes the wild doesn't just ask for help, it gives it. And when it does, it leaves behind something far more lasting than footprints in the snow. It leaves faith.